Aloha, welcome to the Hawaiʻi Conservation Kuleana, brought to you by the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources.
We glide on the ocean with strength and in power, determined to care for earth and sea.
I think the time is right for Hawaiians to lead DLNR in the process of healing.
Preserve what we have, it's our future.
I'm your host, Patty Jetty, and we're here to explore conservation issues from land to sea with expert insights and stories from the field.
And I'm Dan Dennison. We're honored today to have our first guest for our very first podcast, DLNR Chair Don Chang and First Deputy Ryan Kanakaʻole. Thank you guys for joining us. This is going to be a bit of an experiment. We'll see how it goes, so we'll get started.
All right. We'll start with you, Don. Tell us a little bit about your background, your ohana, just your early days.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And thank you for the opportunity. This is all new to us, but hopefully this will be a vehicle to let more people know about who we are and what we do at DLNR. So I'm actually I am from the Ahupua of Kahalu'u on Oahu. My mother's family is Ho'okano, and so we have Kuleana lands, and her family, they were Lavaia fishermen from Kaneohe Bay. My father, his mother was an Okinawan picture bride who came to work on plantations on Maui. And my grandfather was also he had a poi factory in Kahalu'u as well. So I've had long connections to land and ocean, have always appreciated how that resource provides for us. So that's sort of my connection to place.
And how about you, Ryan? Tell us a little bit about you, your ohana, your early days.
I'm from Big Island, Hawaii Island. I grew up in Waiohinu, Ka'u district. Most of my family lived down there. That's where primarily my mother's from. We own a little store out in Waiohinu, Monguen store. My uncle ran it, and now my grandfather runs it. So I grew up around that area. Waiohinu is a very small place. It's about, I want to say like 500 people or less. My father, he's from Hau'ula. But he moved to Ka'u and raised us out there. My grandfather, my father's father, was from Hau'ula as well, Hau'ula and Kahuku area. My mother's side, they're primarily in Waiohinu, but I have family down in Miloli'i and in that Ho'okena area in South Kona. I also have a stepfather. He came into my life when I was around 12 years old. And so he's kind of a big part of my life. And so his family's from Hilo. And so I grew up on that kind of windward side of Hawaii Island.
You both clearly have, deep, long-standing roots here in Hawaii. How has the background that you've just both described influenced your sense of Kuleana for the natural and cultural resources, the things that we're pledged to protect and perpetuate?
For me, it is one of the major driving factors for why I am so grateful to be sitting in this chair. One, we have an opportunity through DLNR, our mission being the protection and preservation of natural and cultural resources. And, we're Aina-based people. I'm not going to go anywhere, nor are my children or my grandchildren. So for me, being with DLNR and being part of the leadership team at DLNR, it provides us the opportunity to ensure that we can, in a very culturally sensitive way, in a balanced approach, but looking at how do we protect and preserve our resources, not just for today, but for future generations, and doing it in a way that we are engaging the community, because they will, we need to co-steward. We cannot do the 1.3 million acres of land and the ocean water, out to 3 miles and everything in between. We really need to do that collectively with our Aina-based partners. And so that my connection to place gives me this Kuleana and an intimate understanding of that connection, both to water and land. And I wouldn't work anyplace else, I assure you. But DLNR is in my mind, it creates that platform and that vehicle to ensure that we take care today for tomorrow.
Ryan, before you answer, let me just interject a question. It strikes me, you've been here, you're about halfway through your term now, that DLNR's engagement with communities has really stepped up under your leadership. Is that a definitive thing that you've wanted to do?
Yes, that has been that's for me has been when I came on board. And in my previous lives, I was a social worker, was a community organizer, and a lawyer. But I recognize that government, for many people, especially disenfranchised and Native Hawaiians, they have not had a genuine connection to government entities. And DLNR, we are so connected between water and land. So my background, I believe, has given me this perspective. We need to reach out to communities, both public and private, all of our partners, to steward these resources. So when I came on board, I recognized that we needed to do that collaboratively. And the divisions have embraced that. I mean, they see the value in working with communities and partners. And so that has been a way for me to ensure that we are fulfilling our mission, but also doing it in a way that will sustain us, again, for the future, because I need the community to feel like they own this, that they have an ownership in the protection and preservation of these resources. And unless we engage with them in that meaningful way, I think we're missing an opportunity. So yes, that has been a mission. I've been driven by that, and I have seen the value of that relationship building over time, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Ryan, your sense of Kuleana and how it informs the work that you are currently doing.
Well, like Chair Chang, I think connection to place, Kuleana, stewardship, that's all part of the DNA. Growing up, my father, my stepfather, my mother folks, our family, we gathers, you live off the land out in Ka'u. Because we rely on it so much, you kind of have to care for it. Being out there in like a remote place, we didn't have too much, I want to say, government intervention or government oversight. So you kind of self-police out there. I think because of that, there's a community-driven resource management that's part and parcel of like the people in the place. So that has been with me for my whole life. And whether I would be doing this or some other job, stewardship and just caring for the place will always be. I don't have to get paid for it, but it's a plus to be able to exert most of my energies during the daylight hours and the nighttime hours doing something like this at DLNR.
So I think what we like to do for our listeners is just have you sort of define what your role is. What kind of assets are you managing and protecting?
Oh my, let me give that a try.
Do we have enough time?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, look at our website. But truly, we manage about 1.3 million acres of land. Most of that is forest lands, but we do have lands throughout the entire state. And we also have jurisdiction over 3 miles, state waters 3 miles out from the shoreline. And if you can only begin to imagine everything in between, that means whether it's a conservation district, whether it's small boat harbors, whether it's enforcement, whether it's managing leases. But DLNR's, our mission is so broad, but our mission is also to preserve and protect these resources. And one of the challenges that I find at DLNR and in the position that we hold in leadership is balancing both the protection and preservation of natural and cultural resources, but at the same time generating enough resources to support that mission. Some divisions have the ability to do that more effectively. For example, state parks. I think that's been, they have found a model post-COVID. One of our best examples is Hyannis State Park. That was an investment in the relationship with the communities probably over a 10-year period of time, where we worked with state parks, collaborated with Aina-based partners, the Hui, with counties, with other government entities to find a way to manage Haena State Park in a way that, one, was culturally sensitive, was respectful, understood the resources, but also looked at capacity. That park could not handle what prior to this new management scheme that we have. But so the parking reservation system at state parks has, and we've entered into, the intention is to have a long-term lease with the Hui, but they manage the park for us. They also manage the parking. They've generated economic opportunities through that management for that community, but they are doing it in a way that is appropriate to that place by the community members of that place. It has created a better visitor experience. We have less capacity using that. So there are agency divisions within DLNR that do have the capacity to collaborate with communities in a way that help DLNR to better manage our resources. DOFA is another great example. They have watershed partnerships. They work with how do we keep our forest lands and our watersheds protected from invasive species, from ungulates. So I think those kinds of, again, our mission is so broad, but what we have found is that with these collaborations, we're able to more effectively manage these resources. That's our broad kuleana. That was a very long answer to your question, but I think that's the challenges and the opportunities we have at DLNR.
Ryan, before we go to you, let me just add a little historical context to Don's comment on Haena State Park. There was a time prior to 2018, and the floods gave us the opportunity to pause and close the park to make all the improvements that you described. But there was a time that there were upwards of 3,000 people entering Haena, which is also the gateway to the famed Nepali Coast State Wilderness Park and the Kalalau Trail. And now it's down to 900. And so it's really remarkable, and I've seen in person the community efforts there and have covered them over the years, and it's really it's an exemplar for what can happen for sure.
No, and I appreciate that, Dan. I mean, I think prior to that, at the time that you're talking about some of the historic numbers, there was such contention in the community. You know, here this is a rural community, and you had this influx of visitors who, one, didn't understand the value of these resources, and it was to the detriment of the community's lifestyle. So through this partnership, and they didn't trust DLNR because we weren't doing a really good job, but through this partnership, one, the community feels a sense of ownership, that they've taken back these resources. And I think that's what we're trying to emulate in communities throughout the islands. Again, our mission is the protection of these resources. But at the same time, if we can find a way for economic opportunities to empower these communities with the resources that they need, the tools, I mean, I think that's the role that we should be playing.
Just to tease future podcasts, we will be talking to the various divisions throughout the rest of the year or the rest of the months ahead. And we will get into the more specifics even of what they're doing and what their objectives are. But for now, Ryan, just tell us a little bit about what you feel like your responsibilities are, what your role is here at the DLNR.
I think for me, as the deputy, my role is primarily support for the chairperson. We cover so much ground in terms of all the things that come up to us from the divisions, and that has to be triaged, prioritized, and handled. I'm here to kind of provide, one, the support to the council for chair. I don't mind doing the boring implementation, drafting of policies, procedures, type stuff. That's part of the, work background anyway, and it's part of the job. Is as in administration. I don't see myself as an expert in anything, especially with so much people in DLNR that are truly experts in their fields. So my role is to just help them in their division, move the ball along, whether that be interfacing with the stakeholders that they're dealing with, the divisions are dealing with, or with the other government entities, or, beyond us, the agencies or the governor or beyond that. So that's my job.
If I can kind of add to that, I think Ryan is underestimating the role that he has. He does a lot more. I mean, as I kind of described what the role and the part that DLNR plays, I could not do this without collaboration with, I think, a trusted deputy, one that we can sit down and talk really candidly over broad policy issues. It is I will tell you, at times it's a very lonely job being the chairperson, because the buck stops with me, both policy, issues, operational issues. So I have greatly valued Ryan's, partnership in leading DLNR. Ryan fills the gaps and supplements areas that I'm not as either or as comfortable with. But Ryan keeps the engine going. He keeps the department going with a lot of the operational things. So again, I think he underestimates this. He does a lot more than I think he takes credit for. So, but it does make a difference having a good team of leadership at DLNR with great staff. Our job isn't to micromanage, it is to provide them the tools to do things, and both Ryan and I think provide those tools to the divisions.
On that subject, you're the first woman of Native Hawaiian ancestry to lead the DLNR. You now have a first deputy who's also of Native Hawaiian ancestry, and you'll have a deputy of the Commission on Water Resource Management who's also Native Hawaiian, which the trio is the first time in DLNR history as far as we know. How does that shape or inform your decisions in leadership, particularly of the Board of Land and Natural Resources? And I should add that Don is also the chair of the Hawaii Drought Council, the co-chair of the Board of Agriculture. You wear a lot of hats.
I do. And I think, again, it shows a broad breadth. But your question about, this Native Hawaiian leadership, I think it's a reflection of the times. I think the time is right for Hawaiians to lead DLNR in the process of healing. I mean, I think I've said numerous times, I'm much more of a process person. My division administrators and staff, they know the substance better than anybody else. In my view, the role of the chairperson is, and again, my style is to facilitate a process. Historically, rural communities, in particular Native Hawaiian communities, have been disenfranchised from the government process. We have not genuinely engaged them. For me, what I see is that as Native Hawaiians, we bring a sense and a connection to place, that it's not something, it's intuitive. It's as Ryan says, we have been raised this way, and so we have a great appreciation and respect for cultural practices. 3 of us are lawyers. We all have an understanding of Article 12, Section 7, the protection and preservation of traditional customary practices. So I think we bring that sensitivity to policies and decisions. And again, I don't make decisions, the board does. So it is, and the Commission on Water Resource Management, they make decisions. But the staff prepares the submittals, and we implement the policies by these various boards. But I think having a Native Hawaiian perspective, it provides the community a sense of, and sometimes it's hard because you're either too Hawaiian or you're not Hawaiian enough. There is an expectation. So for me, again, as a process person, I am trying to create an environment that genuinely engages. So having our communities do more community meetings, and we have over the course of the last year, and we will continue to do community listening sessions where we are taking out our staff, literally representatives from each of our staff, primarily the administrators, out to each island to listen to them. Ask them, what are your concerns? What are your needs? And then see how that fits into with DLNR. So I think that is a perspective that having a Native Hawaiian leadership team brings, the sensitivity of and an understanding of the historic past and creating a space for better conversations within the department, both internally and externally in the community.
The phone ringing is not a sign to cut us off. So, Ryan, anything you'd like to add to what the chair said?
I think Chair hit it all. Being Native Hawaiian and entering these kind of spaces gives us the opportunity to create space for those voices to come in. Not necessarily from ourselves, but from the outside. And having that sensitivity to give that pause and allow those people to come into the room and say their piece, give their opinions, be heard. For myself, that's really why I got into law. That's why I got into government, was I wanted to bring a Hawaiian into the room. And I think through my journey through government, I was able to meet other like-minded Hawaiians from, that became my mentors. And so it's actually really nice. And I hope I'm being in this position, we hold space for more Hawaiians to come in and, lend their voices.
I mean, I think, again, when I say it's a reflection of the time, I also think it's a reflection of this administration's leadership. There are numerous women who sit on the cabinet. There are many other Hawaiians who sit in the cabinet. But I think it is a reflection and a recognition by this administration that we all have to do better. So I just wanted to add that I think, neither Ryan and I would be here on our own. I mean, we went through the selection process, the Senate confirmation process. But I think it is a reflection of this administration's commitment to working with communities and specifically Native Hawaiian communities.
So at the same time, both of you have a history of public service in state government. How has that helped build the necessary background to build relationships with the stakeholders and communities that are touched by what DLNR does?
For me, it's Kuleana. It is give back. I think both Ryan, we were all raised like that. My parents instilled upon me that you have to find opportunities to give back. I have passed that on to my children and my grandchildren. We have been fortunate, but with that Kuleana comes, you need to take care of what we have, the gifts that we've been given. And for me, public service, I will, and I've said this to me, I love DLNR. I love the job, the mission, the opportunities, but this position enables me and this department to truly give back to the community and to our stakeholders who will sustain these resources far beyond any one of us. And I do believe that that comes from a sense of community service, government practice, and this sense of we are all public servants. And unless we take responsibility for that, we'd better be part of the solution and not the problem. So yeah, for me, that's what my past has positioned me to be ready to occupy this position.
I got into public service because it just comes down to the question of how am I going to spend my days? Is it going to be making money and working for some corporation, or giving back to the community and to the entities that helped me along the way? And so I chose the latter. That was from the very beginning. And I was lucky enough to grow up around, let's go back a little. So out in Ka'u, not too much economics, right? You either start your own business like my great-grandfather did, or you work for the government, or you work for the plantation. Plantation is no longer there, so you just work for the government, or you have your own business. And so a lot of my family, they worked in public service as well. My mother, She was an educator a long time. My stepfather, same. My grandfather worked for the county. So I grew up around all these folks that were already in the public sector, and I don't think that there's a better way to spend time than in government service or in public service generally. How has that helped me along the job now that I'm at DLNR? Well, it really helps because since I've been in government so long, I have all these people's cell numbers that I can just call. I have all these friends in different places at different departments across jurisdictions that I can just talk story with. And that helps. That helps, move the needle for the department. It helps move the needle for the state. And those connections are invaluable.
You both certainly embody the spirit of public service in a time when generally in the public it's not often thought highly of. So we really appreciate what you do and the leadership you provide. We're about out of time, so one just quick answer to this final question that we're going to ask everyone as we go through the next 12 months of these podcasts. You could work about anywhere, just in a few words, so why DLNR?
For me, I wouldn't work anyplace else. I assure you. This is my choice. I have been given the privilege and the opportunity to work here. I have, every day I feel grateful to be able to serve at DLNR. And it is its mission. It is the people that we work with. I have not worked with a more passionate group of staff, administrators, and employees. They choose to be here. Many of them could be any place else. They could be earning a lot more money, but they choose to fulfill the mission at DLNR. So that's why I choose DLNR.
I think if you look back in time, the type of responsibilities that we have has been reserved for the privileged, looking over the land, looking over the resources. And so I see it as a huge, huge privilege to be here. It's part of my goal and my progression in life to kind of give back. And at the same time, how do I give back in the broadest sense possible? And so I think my work at the Department of Land and Natural Resources allows me to do that. It allows me to do as much good in the time that I have to as much people as possible.
Mahalo. Chair Don Chang and First Deputy Ryan Kanakaʻole of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, we deeply appreciate you joining us for this first ever Hawaiʻi Conservation Kuleana.
Mahalo to you both.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
And
the
mahalo to all of our, hopefully, thousands of listeners that joined us today. Next time, we're going to be joined by the administrators from the Division of State Parks, which is one of our divisions that probably has more touch with people than many of the others. So for now, I'm Dan Dennison.
I'm Patty Jetty.
Our theme music was provided by Kavika Kahiapo. Thanks for tuning in to Hawaiʻi Conservation Kuleana. Ahui ho.
E ola pono me ka aina o me ke kai